Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, we got to talk about Bradley Beal being benched. And I've said it all year about the Phoenix Suns that I thought Mason Plumlee and Oso Godaro were the better fits. No offense to Jusuf Nurkić. I just thought, hey, like, let's try to turn that into a smaller contract, even if it's a lateral move. However, what we're hearing is that the Phoenix Suns, yes, they allegedly benched him, Bradley Beal, to get him to remove or waive his no trade clause. So the Phoenix Suns are at a critical juncture in the 24 to 25 season. They have a 15-18 record. They are 12th in the Western Conference. Amid a four-game losing streak and growing locker room tension, the Suns have decided to remove Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkić from the starting lineup. I think this bold move signals a potential shift in strategy, with Phoenix eyeing opportunities to move Beal's contract if possible. But even then, I don't even think moving him would be, who are you going to get that's going to be an upgrade at this point? I think that's a future thing to do. So I think maybe moving those two guys to the bench could actually make your bench unit better. Kind of like how the Hawks moved DeAndre Hunter from the starting lineup to the sixth man role and he flourished. And we've seen that time in and time out all the time. So Bradley Beal, he's averaging like 18 points this season, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and he at times he does look like himself, and then at other times he looks a little older, lost a step, but he clearly can be a guy who can shoot efficiently, 48% from the field, 39% from three, remain solid, but his production pales compared to Devin Booker's 25 points and 7 assists a night and Kevin Durant's 28 points and 7 rebounds a game. And Bradley Beal is more of a secondary playmaker. He's not a table setter. And it's not that he's a terrible defender, but his defensive contributions have at times hindered his fit into Mike Budenholzer's system. This is a team that has the 10th worst net rating of negative 2.3 and struggles defensively, particularly in rebounding and just interior defense. Meanwhile, Tyus Jones, who's averaging 13.6 assists and 43% from three, and Swiss Army knife Royce O'Neal is averaging just under 11 points and 6 rebounds, shooting 44% from three. Both of those guys are a lot more versatile and efficient players. And seemingly, you would think a lineup of Mason Plumlee, Royce O'Neal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Tyus Jones with Jusuf Nurkić and Bradley Beal off the bench, I think could bolster the depth and the staggering the minutes for your starters in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So transitioning Beal to the bench, Phoenix puts the pressure on him to reconsider his long-term commitment to this team. And if he still continues to struggle, I think you do have to think about a trade. And that's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts at this point in the video. Do you think that is something you would want to see or not? I am just curious. What would you guys do if you were the Phoenix Suns? The Phoenix Suns have a few people or a few teams that they could hit up on the phone. We're just going to address the elephant in the room. Miami obviously emerges as a natural trade destination for Bradley Beal due to their structured system under Eric Spoelstra, just like we heard a year or two ago before he got traded to the Suns. However, it came out that wherever Jimmy Butler gets traded, the Miami Heat don't want long-term money back, and Beal still has 2 years left. So unless he would be willing to waive that no trade clause, so if the Heat would consider trading Jimmy Butler, who obviously they're trying to trade for Bradley Beal, the Suns would need to include whatever draft capital they have to offset the salary disparity to ensure Miami is interested. Now, obviously, a guy like Jimmy Butler and his defensive abilities and just being a two-way guy who's an all NBA player is perfect, while Bradley Beal could rejuvenate his career in the twilight stage of his career alongside Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero as the third option. I think the next team that could potentially be interested in a Bradley Beal trade, it just becomes really, really difficult if they were to do this. The so For example, the Milwaukee Bucks would love Bradley Beal for Khris Middleton, but that just can't happen because both teams are second apron. So that's where I think, if Bradley Beal isn't traded this season, I think down the road, a trade with Milwaukee could center on Khris Middleton if either both teams are able to get into the first apron or one of them are. As Khris Middleton hypothetically fits Phoenix roster better with his scoring and defensive versatility, cheaper contract, and he can actually be a sixth man for them. And then Bradley Beal fits well next to Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, which would create a potent offensive trio for the Bucks. I think this is a move that would be an offseason move, as Milwaukee probably would have to wave the white flag on Khris Middleton, and they would just nobody else would want Khris Middleton, and they would the only guy they could get is Khris Middleton packaged with hypothetically a Brook Lopez. Again, this would have to be in the offseason because the salary doesn't work. So who's the next team? Again, I really don't think there's a trade out there for Bradley Beal, but we're entertaining this, A, because this is a YouTube video, but B, it's just definitely an interesting thing to see. So with that being said, a Bradley Beal Paul George swap could work. You would just have to include a salary filler. In this case, you could get away with either, would you throw in, I think Adam Bona could be the guy. Maybe, Kyle Lowry seems to be Nick Nurse is a big Kyle Lowry fan, and he's on a minimum contract, and they're playing him like 20 minutes a night. So Adam Bona and Mr. Paul George for a Bradley Beal swap. If Paul George is just killed the mood and they're just trying to get rid of him, that really could be a deal that works. Again, this one would be more in the offseason. The only other deals I could really see is if Toronto, which is entering its second rebuild season under head coach Darko Rajakovic, would then be like, hey, would you, like the Suns have some picks. They could say, here's Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher, and then they send Bradley Beal, and I think they have a 2031 pick they can trade. Yeah, a 2031 unprotected first that they could trade. Like something like that. That's the only deal I could see in the middle of the year. You're getting an expiring contract in Bradley Beal, and then you get yourself Chris Boucher. And then you can move Jusuf Nurkić for another big man like a not Robert Williams, but because you wouldn't trade him back to Portland, but a Nick Richards. So after that, again, all the way, I just think Beal can't be traded now. So for Bradley Beal, I think he's a guy who's going to thrive in a structured offensive first system where he focuses on being an off-ball scorer and a secondary playmaker. So a coach like Eric Spoelstra or Ty Lue in Los Angeles, or even a Nick Nurse in Philadelphia or a Darko Rajakovic in Toronto, I think would maximize his scheme. And I think conversely, teams like Toronto and Philadelphia amid significant roster transitions would have to clarify Beal's role to ensure his effectiveness. But the Phoenix Suns' decision to bench Bradley Beal highlights their urgency to realign their roster, and by just exploring different lineups, they can figure out if they have to trade him or not. And the Suns can position themselves to improve chemistry, balance the roster, and enhance the playoff chances if they can fix the rotations. And for Beal, waiving is no trade clause would offer a fresh start in a system better suited to his strengths, potentially revitalizing his career if he's traded before the deadline or in the offseason.